a beautiful summer afternoon. It's a Sunday. We all have a lot of things to do. Our speaker, I don't think our microphone's working all that well, but I'll try to talk loud. Once again, thank you for coming. This is sort of it's not the reopening. It's been open for a while, but it's a finishing of a big project that a lot of people have been working on. I just want to say some very brief things. I know that nobody wants to listen to a long, boring speech, so I'll try to make it probably boring but less long. So I just wanted to let you know that this is being sponsored right now by the Friends of the North Cornwall Meeting House. That was a group that got together. The origins go back to about 2006, so it's been a while in the works. And I got to give a shout out to some people. Originally it was Ed Bigelow and Al Dietzel, who were with the Chapel of All Saints, which is the Episcopalian congregation that used to meet in the meeting house. And they approached a couple people from the UCC, which is the owner of the meeting house, and that was Bob Potter and our own Paul Barron. Paul, where's Paul? Paul Barron. They got together and they got the ball rolling. The idea was that the building needed some renovation. There was some work that needed to be done. It was obvious. Things have been done a little along the line here and there, but there was a need for a major renovation. The idea was that we'll do this in anticipation of the 200th anniversary in 2026. So they got it organized. The Friends is a group. It's got people from the Episcopal congregation. It's got people from the UCC. It's got people from that are affiliated with any of the churches, but are just members of the community that really liked the building. Got it organized, and we raised money, and our job was to raise money for the UCC. Their preservation committee was what would do the planning. They were the owners of the building. They're the ones signing the contracts. They're the ones getting all the official work done. So we've been assisting them in that. I just want to go back a little brief history lesson as to why we are here rather than there. And originally, as you know, there was one big congregational church in Cornwall, and there was a schism in the 1780s that was really more to do with personalities and finances than theology. And there was a split, and there were some splinters that broke away and decided to set their own congregation. Now, the original congregational church was down near where 128 meets Town Street. And the church was there, it had been built in the 1740s. When the splinters, being the second church, split off, they built their own church in 1787 directly across the street. So it was a little awkward at the time, I would imagine, when everybody's going to church on Sunday morning with people going into two different sets of churches with a little bit of acrimony from what I've been able to read about. And you realize, in spite of the churchy history we think we have, the population in Cornwall in 1790, around when this happened, was almost 1,500 people, meaning there were more people in Cornwall then than there are now. And 10 years later, it was over 1,600 people. The first church, being the main congregational church, had 30 members, and the splinter church, being the second church in 1807, had 25 members, being 12 men and 3 women. So the church-going congregation was not particularly great back then, but anyway, they for 4 years they had this kind of acrimonious, well, not acrimonious, but there were lawsuits, things had to be settled in court. There was a lot going on. They were very litigious people, actually, if you take a look at it. In 1791, the main church, the first church, apparently had enough, and they decided they were going to pack up their tent, they were going to go down to the village green and build a church there. But money was really tight at that point. Cornwall was pretty broke in the 1780s and 90s because the Revolutionary War, the hard currency was hard to get, and the paper money was pretty much worthless. And I noted that there was, village church was built in 1791, and there was a guy named General Swift from Cornwall Bridge who kept pestering the town, and it wasn't until 1796 that he was reimbursed for a keg of rum that he purchased for the church raising in 1791. So it took him 5 years to pay his liquor bill. Having worked in a liquor store, I know it's an awfully long time. But anyhow, they were down there from 1787 when they built their little church down there, the second church. In the early 1800s, they had to apply to the state to get permission to set up their own ecclesiastical society to split off officially, even though they'd sort of gone like this and were doing their own thing. It wasn't official. They needed to make this official. They got the rubber stamp in 1804. They then decided they were going to raise money to move up here. This is going to be where the locus was. The main families that were supporting it were the Rogers family, And there's a guy named Squire Burnham who lived down in the Ives house where the Stetsons were, where Oscar Schmamian lives now, I believe. There was a fight about who was going to donate the land. It was won by the Rogers, so this is originally part of the Rogers farm. And the church was originally financed by subscription. They basically sold shares in it to people that they went around for years trying to drum up enough money to scrape the funds up to do this. When they built the church in 1826, they actually tore down the old church and used a lot of the timbers. So some of the timbers in this building go back to the 1780s. And they were just they were repurposed here. This church was an exact duplicate of the Congregational Church in Sharon at the time. They liked the church, they basically got the blueprints. They hired a master church builder named Hiram Vale, who came in, put the church together, a duplicate of Sharon, except for the steeple. Apparently the Sharon church had a much squatter looking steeple, and they put a Christopher Wren steeple on this. The steeple and the spire were much taller and more elegant looking. The Sharon church later burned down, so this is the only copy left. It's the duplicate, but it's the only one we have. Originally the church, the pulpit was back there. There was a slope coming up like this, and like festival seating, I guess, so the people in the back could see the heads of the people in the front. I think it's unclear as to why they put the pulpit back there, but my guess is maybe to embarrass people coming late. You know, you want to start on time, you want people dawdling in the hallway and dawdling coming across the lawn. So if you know you're going to be walking past everybody looking square at you can't sneak in the back, you're more likely to be on time. Bob Potter told me all the glass here, and a lot of it's still the original glass, you can tell it's the wavy glass, was imported from England in 1826, which must have cost an awful lot of money back then. And the pillars you're looking at right now, each one of the pillars, 8 pillars here, were chestnut, and they're donated by members of the 8 families that were the primary supporters of the second church. I don't think anybody knows who had what pillar at this point. At least I've never been able to uncover which is which. But the names from what I can figure out were the Rogers, Pratt, Scoville, Hurlburt, Gold, and I believe Ives and or Burnham. When they opened their church in 1826, it was cost a little more than $3,000 of hard-earned money, and they had a festival. They had a little opening, and the women served something called puffalo, which is a kind of a punch, but apparently it was made of rum, molasses, and spices. There's a lot of rum in the history of Cornwall, from what I can tell. When they put the spire on, they got 2 1826 half dollars, and they pounded them into the little globe you see right beneath the weather vane up there. They're still there. I talked to a guy named Ira Roberts, who was a carpenter back in the 50s, who built the spire, and he told me that when he was doing renovation, they reinstalled it. They were still hammered into the little globe that was up there. Things plunked along for a while. This part of Cornwall became more prosperous as farming developed better. And in 1926, they decided to do a major overhaul. They switched the pulpit around sometime before 1926. They put the nice organ in. They put the window in right there. Another thing Bob Potter told me, and Bob Potter was a fountain of information about this, was that when they, in 1926, they put the window in, they planted that little tree you see out there. That maple tree was outside. And to give people an idea of what it would look like, they had painted leaves on the window panes, the little panes of glass here, to give people an idea of what it would look like, which is what it looks like now, which is really kind of a cool thing. There were various renovations that were being worked on. The building needed help here and there. The carpet is what we put in. It looks a lot like the stuff from 1926. I don't know if it's going to last 90 years or not, but we're hopeful. And the other thing, when we started doing the renovation here, they had the engineers looking at the building, so everybody was concerned about the structure of the steeple and the spire. And they noticed there was a pitch of about 5 or 6 degrees, basically heading towards the northwest, and it goes off that direction. I guess you can have a keen eye, you can see it. I can't see it myself, but apparently it is there, and there was concern that this was new and the steeple might be unstable, which is one of the reasons we got the renovation going. Bob Potter also unearthed some documents from, I think it was 1920 or 21, when they were talking about getting ready for the renovation of 1926. They noted that there was a 6 degrees pitch in the steeple towards the northwest. So it's been there for an awful long time, and it's still there to this day, so that's not really something anybody really has to worry much about. I just wanted to let you know that the Friends will continue to be active. We will, in the past, we've been committees that were sort of ad hoc committees. There was one in the 50s that that when the new steeple was built, I think that was 1958, if I recall, Roxanna Laughlin mentioned at one point that it was on the ground when she got married here, and it was later placed up either sometime after the ceremony, but it was in the middle of the renovation at that point. But the Friends will continue. We've raised some money. We have a little bit of money set aside for the maintenance of the building. It just goes strictly towards the bricks and mortar, if we had bricks and mortar, but it goes just towards the building itself. That's what our purpose is. It's an active church. We have service every Sunday morning, but it's an awful lot more than that, as you know. It means something to people. It's an iconic figure, and it's kind of iconic building in town. It's for weddings, funerals, there are readings here. We've had musical events here, and it really is a place just to come and feel quiet. And it's just a gorgeous little building. You probably know that it's probably the only sanctuary in New England that does not have lights in it. They can bring lamps in, but there's no fixed lighting here other than the candles. I'd like to give shout outs to a couple of people, the people on the Friends. Ann Coffin, Paul Barron, of course, Dave Hubbard, Don Bachman, Hunt Williams, Joan McGuire, and Ginny Potter, who have all done a ton of work on this. Bob Potter was a member of our committee for a very, very long time, and his loss is felt by everybody. He was a wonderful person, and he knew this building inside and out. Julia Scott, who's here, was on our committee for a while. We appreciate her efforts on this. Lisa Smont was a member of the committee for a while. Jane Bean has contributed to today with the food. Marianne Poinelli was assisting us when we were first trying to get our operation going as far as raising money went. And Lisa Keskinen and Ginny Potter, who were the two prime members of the UCC doing the preservation committee, leading the various parts of the preservation committee, and an awful lot of work fell on them dealing with contractors and subcontractors. But this is basically about everybody here, about the support we received, about how happy we are with this. It was a joy working on this. We had a real good partnership with the UCC. Everybody worked together. We all had a common purpose, and it all went really well. And I just want to let everybody know that we appreciate everything you did, whether you contribute financially or not. We know that your support is there, and it really has made this nice. And if anybody has any further questions, please talk to me. I left one of the brochures, actually a program from the 1926 centennial celebration out on the table in the vestibule if anybody wants to take a look at that. But I would like to turn it over to Mickey Nunn Miller, who is the minister of the UCC. And once again, thank you all, and I appreciate all your help.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Jim, to you for chairing the committee in all the ways that you've done the work. We appreciate it very much. I should have spoken first, because he said a lot of what I was going to say, so I'm speaking only shortly. I just want to thank everybody for being here today to celebrate this incredible building. I mean, does it look fantastic or what? Oh my God. And I just want to mention just a tiny little interesting fact. Our insurance company lists these windows as priceless in terms of what they're worth to replace. It says on the thing, priceless. I mean, this is a very special building. So thank you so much for helping us to preserve this building in a town, it's a town treasure, in a town that loves antique buildings. They clearly do. And we have many wonderful antique buildings, and it's a testimony to people in town that we're trying to keep them in good condition. And we thank our forebears for building this meeting house so uniquely. I mean, it's clearly a place of grace and sanctuary. We thank our siblings of 100 years ago, called the Scoville Associates, that Jim mentioned, for doing a restoration project that brought us up to this point. So in 2026, when we'll celebrate the 200th anniversary of the North Cornwall Meeting House, it will definitely be ready. It will be in condition to live, we hope, another 100 years. Interestingly, the engineers and so forth everyone agrees the building is in unbelievable, amazing condition. Most of the buildings of this age go because of water damage or bugs, and we don't have either. So just, I don't know, we'll knock on, anyway, they are all who look at it from a professional point of view in that regard believe it is in incredible shape. So I just want to point out, I haven't mentioned the word church to describe this meeting house, because the church is not a building, you know. Rather, the church is a group of people who celebrate life, who mourn together, and who challenge the comfortable to transform the world into a more just place for all. And in our case, you know, we're a church body that makes a point of welcoming all, no matter who we are or where we are in life's journey, especially including the LGBTQI++ community. And so we're just blessed to have two beautiful places in which to meet. So over these 2 centuries, several families have tenderly cared for the space, which helps explain the condition it's in today. And Jim mentioned many of those. Others have taken up the mantle in more recent years, and he mentioned our dear Bob Potter, who cared for and tended this space so lovingly. So I want to thank Ginny, who's away right now, for shepherding Phase 1, and Lisa Keskinen, Bob's niece, for shepherding Phase 2, and of course I want to thank all the friends of the North Cornwall Meeting House for so strongly raising money for this beautiful place. Without all of you, and many others who aren't with us today, we never could have completed this project, which also included a steep grant from the town of Cornwall. So I want to make sure we mention that the town was also very helpful in this renovation. So thank you so much. Over the centuries, this building has seen a lot, you know, community events and town meetings, that's why it's called a meeting house. And it's also seen, you know, weddings and worship services and baptisms and many Christmas Eves and funerals. And Charlotte Frost used to say, when I was first here, she described this building for me, and she used to say that the walls drip with the prayers of our ancestors. Nice. So it's a special place. And the UCC in Cornwall and I want to thank all of you for helping to continue this tradition. Thank you very much. And I know that the friends are setting up a little something for us outside, but be sure and take a look around. We haven't completely put back up all the historical materials, but Jim mentioned the split and the application to become a new ecclesiastical area, Second Congregational Church, and we have that original application, and it's usually hanging in the vestibule. It's not back up yet, but we have several of the documents from the early church, many of which are housed at the Historical Society, but it's very exciting that we still have these things, and we will continue to treasure them. Thank you.